In an era when a child's profound filial piety moved the very heavens, a young girl's noble sacrifice became a guiding light for a father trapped in darkness.
In the final years of the Song dynasty, a man lived in the village of Dohwadong. His family name was Sim, and his name was Hakyu. He came from a noble house, known for generations of scholars. But fortune had turned away from him, and he fell into deep poverty. Before he reached 20, his world was covered in darkness. He lost his sight, and the path to high office was closed forever. Yet, he remained a man of pure heart and steady character. The people of the village called him a gentleman, even in his rags. Beside him was his wife, the beautiful and wise Lady Guak. She was a woman of ancient virtues, with the beauty of a blooming flower. Though they had no wealth, she never complained about their life. She worked day and night, sewing and washing for her neighbors. She gathered every penny to serve her husband with the finest meals. Their only sorrow was their empty home, for they had no children. One spring night, a miracle finally knocked on their door. Lady Guak fell into a deep sleep, and a celestial dream began. A fairy descended from the clouds, riding upon a white crane. She wore a crown of flowers and held sweet cinnamon blossoms. "I am a daughter of the Queen of Heaven," the fairy whispered. "I have been sent to your house to find a new home on earth." The fairy stepped into Lady Guak's arms, like the light of a moon. In the month of April, a daughter was born, as beautiful as the dream. They named her Sim Cheong, but their happiness was short-lived. 7 days later, a cold wind blew through the room. Lady Guak had grown weak, and her life was fading like a candle. "Please take care of our daughter," she said with her last breath. Sim Sa wept until his heart broke, holding his motherless child. Sim Sa was now a man alone, in a world he could not see. He held his tiny baby in his arms and walked into the village. He went from house to house, begging for a drop of milk. "Kind mothers, please pity this child who has no mother." The women of Dohwadong were moved to tears by his devotion. They shared their milk, and Sim Cheong grew strong and healthy. The years passed like a stream, and Sim Cheong turned 15. She was a girl of matchless beauty and a heart purer than jade. She took the burden from her father and worked for their food. "Father, do not go out to beg anymore," she told him gently. "I will work for us both and keep you safe at home." One rainy evening, Sim Cheong was late returning from her work. Sim Sa sat in the dark, his heart filled with worry. "Where is my daughter? Why has she not returned?" he wondered. He stumbled out of the house, leaning on his wooden staff. The wind howled, and the path was slippery with mud. Suddenly, his foot slipped at the edge of a deep river. With a splash, he fell into the cold, rushing water. He struggled to breathe and cried for help to the empty sky. "Is there anyone? Please save this old man from the grave." A monk from the Mongan Sa temple was passing by the shore. He reached into the water and pulled Sim Sa to safety. As they sat on the bank, the monk spoke of the Buddha's power. "If you offer 300 sacks of rice, your eyes will open." The monk promised that the light would return to his world. Sim Sa, desperate to see his daughter, made the vow. He wrote his name on the list, promising rice he did not have. But when he returned to his senses, his heart filled with terror. "What have I done? How can a beggar find such wealth?" When Sim Cheong returned home, she found her father in despair. He refused to eat, and his face was clouded with a secret. "Father, why do you weep? Has someone harmed you?" Sim Sa sighed. "It is nothing a child can solve." But Sim Cheong knelt before him and begged him to speak. Finally, he confessed his encounter with the monk. "I promised 300 sacks of rice to open my eyes. but I have committed a sin, for I cannot pay the debt." Sim Cheong did not scold him. She smiled through her worry. "Do not weep, father. The heavens will surely help us." That very night, she went to the yard and lit a lamp. She prayed to the moon, offering her own life for his. "I am but a small girl, but I would die for him." A few days later, a rumor reached Dowadong. Sailors from Namgyong sought a girl to sacrifice to the sea. They needed a pure soul to calm the spirits of Indangsu. Sim Cheong knew in her heart this was the answer to her prayer. She met the sailors, her voice steady and clear. "I will be your sacrifice, if you pay for my father's eyes." The sailors were shocked by such a deep filial love. They agreed to send the rice to the temple immediately. "We will return in March to take you to the sea." Sim Cheong bowed low. Her fate was sealed with a promise. She returned home and told her father a gentle lie. "A noble lady has adopted me and paid the debt." Sim Bongsa rejoiced, not knowing the terrible price. The day of the voyage drew near, and the air grew cold. Sim Cheong spent her final nights sewing clothes for her father. She folded them neatly, making sure he would be warm. She looked at his sleeping face, and her tears fell like rain. "Who will guide you when I am beneath the waves?" On the final morning, she rose to cook one last meal. She prepared the rice with care, seasoned with her love. "Eat well, dear father. This is a special day." Sim Bongsa ate with a smile. He had dreamed of a carriage. "I dreamed you were riding a cart. Surely luck is coming." Sim Cheong could only nod, knowing the cart was her coffin. Suddenly, heavy footsteps were heard at the gate. "The tide is high. It is time for the girl to come." The world seemed to stop as Sim Bongsa dropped his spoon. Sim Cheong fell to the floor and grasped her father's knees. "Father, please forgive me. I have lied to you. I was not adopted. I was sold to the sailors." Sim Bongsa's world shattered, and he wailed in agony. "No, I do not want the light. I want my daughter." He tried to hold her, but the sailors pulled her away. The villagers gathered, weeping for the girl of jade. Sim Cheong looked back at her home and her father. "Be healthy, live long, and remember your Cheong." She walked to the harbor as the mountains seemed to moan. The ship's sails were raised, and the journey began. The voyage lasted for many days and many nights. Finally, the ship reached the treacherous waters of Indangsu. The sky turned black, and the wind began to howl. The waves rose like mountains, crashing against the hull. The sailors shook with fear, for the sea was demanding its due. "The time has come," the captain shouted to the girl. Sim Cheong stepped to the edge, her robes fluttering. She looked into the abyss, where the water was deep. She put her hands together and offered a final prayer. "I give my life for my father. Let his eyes be open." She covered her face with her skirt and stepped into the wind. With a splash, she was swallowed by the hungry waves. But instead of death, a miraculous light began to glow. The Dragon King had been waiting for the faithful girl. He commanded the sea creatures to protect her. Celestial maidens descended, carrying a jade chair. They led her to the crystal palace, made of pearls and coral. The palace was a Byeolcheonji, a place of beauty beyond human eyes. The Dragon King welcomed her with a grand feast. Sim Cheong lived in peace, but her heart remained above. For 3 years, she thought only of her father's darkness. Even in paradise, her filial love was the brightest light. The heavens were moved and prepared for her return. The time arrived for Sim Cheong to fulfill her destiny. The Dragon King placed her inside a magnificent lotus flower. The flower drifted to the surface and floated on the sea. Namgyong sailors returning home, saw the wonder. They were amazed by a flower blooming in the salty waves. They brought the blossom to the emperor as a gift. The emperor was delighted and placed it in a special pond. He named it Englsih, the flower from heaven. One night, the emperor was walking, admiring the moon. He saw the lotus unfurl, and a sweet scent filled the air. From within, a woman of jade-like beauty stepped forth. The emperor was struck. "Are you a person or a spirit?" Sim Cheong bowed low, outshining every flower in the garden. The emperor knew. The heavens had sent him a queen. He made her his empress, and the land flourished. But even on a throne, her eyes were filled with tears. She watched autumn geese and wished she could follow them. She wrote a letter to her father, but could not send it. "Is my father safe? Does he walk in the light?" Her sorrow was deep, but she formed a clever plan. She would use the emperor's power to find her father. For a daughter's love can cross any distance. Empress Sim Cheong lived in a palace, but was not at rest. She often sat by the railings, watching the clouds. "Is my father still alive? Does he wander in the dark?" She saw a lone gurogi, wild goose, in the autumn sky. "Stay a moment, bird. Carry a letter to my father." She wrote with tears. But the goose flew away into the mist. The emperor saw her sadness and asked of her burden. Finally, she told him of her father, Sim Hak Yu. The emperor was moved and ordered a search, but messengers returned. The blind man had vanished. Then, the empress thought of a plan to bring him to her. "Let us host a blind man's banquet for every soul." The emperor agreed and sent a decree to every village. Every blind man, from lord to beggar, is invited. Far away, Sim Bongsa heard the news in a humble shack. He had lost his daughter and wandered with a staff. "I have no reason to live, but I can eat one last meal." He began the long journey to the capital, on foot. He walked through the heat and washed in streams. He even sang songs with woodcutters to earn his way. One by one, thousands of blind men gathered at the palace. The empress watched from a pavilion, scanning every face. The banquet lasted for days, yet he did not appear. On the last day, her hope was beginning to fade. Have the heavens forgotten him? Will I see him again? The sun was setting on the final day of the banquet. A lone, ragged figure appeared at the palace gate. He was covered in dust, and his staff was worn down. The empress leaned forward, her heart beating fast. She saw the familiar curve of his noble brow. "Bring that man to me," she commanded, trembling. Sim Bongsa was led into the hall, fearing a crime. The empress asked, "Old man, do you have a family?" Sim Bongsa fell to his knees, and tears flowed. "I had a daughter, my beautiful Cheong, who sold herself. She died in the sea, and I am the sinner who let her go." Sim Cheong could contain her heart no longer, and ran. She threw her arms around him, crying, "Father, it is I." Sim Bongsa was struck with a shock like lightning. "Is this a dream? Is my daughter's voice calling me?" He reached out and touched her face, her hair. In that moment of perfect love, a crackling sound filled the hall. The thick scales that had covered his eyes fell away. Sim Bongsa blinked, and then his eyes flew wide. I can see the world. I can see my daughter." It was a miracle that shook the foundations of the empire. Every blind person across the land also opened their eyes. The palace was filled with joy and the sound of dancing. Sim Bongsa was made a prince and lived in the palace. He found a new wife, the wise and kind Lady An. The story of Sim Cheong's sacrifice was written in gold. For filial piety is the root of virtue, and the light and they lived in peace for 100 happy years.
In an era when a child's profound filial piety moved the very heavens, a young girl's noble sacrifice became a guiding light for a father trapped in darkness. Sim Cheong, who cast herself into the treacherous waters of Indangsu, her tale transcends mere sorrow, leading us toward a magnificent miracle. What Sim Cheong cast into the raging waves was not despair, but a steadfast faith in her father. That profound devotion finally dispelled the cold darkness of Indangsu, blossoming into a radiant miracle that opened her father's long-closed eyes. Sim Cheong chose a noble sacrifice over her own life. If you were in her shoes, could you have plunged into the rough waters of Indangsu for the one you love? Leave your thoughts in the comments below and explore more of our interactive worlds on the Google Play Store. This is Studio Puri.